Hi everybody, my name is Anthony Diaz, co-founder and executive director of the Newark Water Coalition. Today's video subject is about land. So many people talk about land, whether it's community land trusts, community gardens, being stewards of the land, how we all need to get land, but few people actually ever talk to people who actually work the land. So in today's video, I brought Halie with us today to talk about the work that she does to really provide a perspective on this. I really want to make sure that we are at the forefronts of these conversations because we should be deciding what happens with our land. And too often with gentrification and other things that are going on, we don't have the ability to make sure that we're the ones in charge. So with that, Halie, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Halie Bennett. I am the garden manager and admin at the Hub in Orange, New Jersey, and I help them with programming as well as maintaining the garden. I'm also launching a environmental justice and gardening program that's citywide in Orange called Orange Patches, and it's basically just inspiring people to be land stewards within Orange and making sure that we're preserving green space in the city while we're facing a lot of rapid development.
That's dope. Can you tell me two things? How'd you get into your work, and then tell me about the initiative that you're doing now and like how that came about?
Initially, I really got into this just from a health and wellness perspective. I was really interested in herbal medicine, and that kind of just led me down the path of like connections to the land and spiritual work and just all of that together, and it made me realize that I needed to be getting my hands in the dirt for myself, for my own personal healing, but also just to make sure that, you know, we're taking care of the earth because this is our home and the earth is going to survive. Like, we're the ones that have to be worried. So basically, like, all of that came together, and it led to me being very concerned with like getting land, growing medicine, growing food, and making sure that I'm connecting people to doing the same.
Tell me about the herbalist, because I definitely forgot that you did this. So like high key, you're like an alchemist.
I don't know, that's heavy.
Accept the compliment.
You're right, I'll accept the compliment. Cool, yeah. We're doing magic out here with the earth. So basically, it started with people in my family and myself having health issues, and me being more concerned about like what am I putting into my body and onto my body, and that led to like nothing is natural, all this stuff that we're taking in, and you know, what am I eating, like why am I eating all this trash when like there are vegetables here that I love to eat. Yeah, that was really the entry point, and I did an apprenticeship, shout out to Karen Rose and Sacred Vibes in Brooklyn. You know, and and I really learned a lot. I reconnected with my ancestors. You know, I just realized that earth stewardship is what I'm really passionate about. I'm also a yoga teacher, so like bringing all of that in together, like really finding the connections between spirit and earth and ourselves is really powerful to me.
Well, that's actually one of my questions about, you know, is there, well, obviously you answered yes, but the spiritual component that's there, what do you mean by that? And I think a lot of people, like especially organizers, we don't talk enough about the spiritual component. We don't talk enough about our lineage. We don't talk enough about our ancestors. So if you care to elaborate.
Yeah, well, for me, it's kind of like as above, so below. So like the spiritual world is also a part of us, you know, even when you break it down to like the fact that as a living creature, like we are predominantly water, like that connection to water is important, and like why we need to be concerned about like what our water sources are looking like, you know, what our food is like taking in, like that we're all really interconnected to one another. And when we're talking about climate change and, you know, all these things happening on our planet, like that's also a reflection of what's happening with us. So kind of just as I like got deeper into my own spiritual journey and was realizing like there were things that I needed to change about how I'm taking care of myself, and I just started seeing like so much beauty in the connections between myself and the earth, like just finding out all these amazing things that plants do and seeing how they work in myself and other people, and then seeing how that's reflected in the way that they grow, and like that's reflected in the way that we're treating the land. Like if you want all these really nourishing plants, you have to have good soil, you have to be giving it sun, you have to give it water, and like how is that a reflection of ourselves? If we want to be happy and healthy, we're like plants too, basically. You know, we need sun, we need that vitamin D. That's why we all get so hyped for summer. You know, we need like to nourish ourselves. Like when we're not eating well, we feel like trash, we feel sick. You know, that's all connected to everything, you know? So kind of just having this really holistic look, an interconnected look to my work kind of just led me down different like rabbit holes. And now I'm like, okay, I need land, you know, I want to make sure I'm a steward to land. I want to make sure I'm learning how to grow medicine and stuff. And that led to me like learning how to farm and, you know, going back into Orange, helping with community gardens. And, you know, now it's like, this is what I'm doing for real, for work.
That's really dope and interesting because I never thought of it as like a kind of a reflection of myself. You know, oftentimes I look at the planet and I look at water and I literally feel like, oh man, you know, you can sense when something's not right. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with your body. You sense when something's not right, when something's off. And like, how do you fix that? How do you remedy that? So I definitely appreciate the work you're doing, especially because I think in times, you know, this is a little bit of kind of a tangent, but we rely so heavily on what traditional schooling tells us. Mm-hmm. Don't believe in your culture. Don't believe in that, you know, the hoodoo or the voodoo or the, you know, whatever. Believe in this modern science. And you're like, yeah, but culturally speaking, this is where I come from. Mm-hmm. This is the medicine of my people. And if my people are still here, they must be doing something right. So thank you for that. What do you think it means to be a land protector?
I think being a land protector is being aware of what's going on with land, being aware of the challenges facing land. I think it's also a really big important part of that, in my opinion, is shifting the perspective on ownership. There is like a huge focus, like you talked about earlier, on land ownership. And I myself, like, I really want to own land, but do we really own the land in the first place? Like, you know, first off, like, as a person of color, as a black person in America, I feel like almost entitled to the land, and I have to check that in myself, right? Because
why not? Why is that such a
because there were people here before us, right? Mm-hmm. Like there was like nations upon nations of people in this land who were doing their own thing, and they were stewarding this land before we got here, you know? So a lot of it is being mindful of that, and actually spending time at Muncie Three Sisters. And last year I interned for MEVO, which is an organization that does basically like agricultural education, and they were working with and they still work with the folks at Ramapo tribe, not the university, just to clarify, and that was a really eye-opening experience for me, because it was just a reminder that like, yeah, there's so much stuff happening that's not just happening to black folks. You know, land ownership isn't really about this is my land and like get off it kind of thing, and I do what I want with this land. I think a lot of it is more so like I have a responsibility to take care of this land and give back to the land, because we're taking so much from it. You know, we're getting food from it, we're getting medicine from it, like the animals that we eat and love are getting from it as well. And if we don't take care of it, we're not getting any of that. And we're at a point where we've depleted so much of the earth's energy and so much of what we need from the earth that like we really have to reflect on ourselves and like what we've taken and what we need to do to give back, so that we can continue to ask for these blessings from earth. Because like when you think about like the science of earth, and you know, plants are growing and creating energy from like what we can barely even like conceptually understand, you know, that's real magic. And like you brought up modern science, and like there's been so much science and technology before like the Renaissance and everything that we think of in modern science and technology. Like we have ancestral knowledge and technology that we tap into when we disconnect from a lot of like modern society. And like that goes back to why I want to reconnect people with the earth, because it really reconnects us to like what we've forgotten from, you know, centuries of modernization.
Because what I realized, especially when the lockdown happened, the Newark Water Coalition was buying water from ShopRite. We would distribute like 150 gallons a week. It was like $150. But you know, they locked everything down, and ShopRite told me, "Oh, we can't sell you water anymore." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "What do you mean? You know, we're giving it out. We have this relationship." And they're like, "Yeah, my boss said we can't sell you water anymore." And I realized then how unself-sufficient I was. Imagine being the leader or one of the leaders of the Newark Water Coalition and not being able to distribute water. It really blew my mind. And so, you know, that's what birthed the partnership with the Water Box. That's kind of what led to the work at the farm, because we were told we couldn't be a food pantry because we don't have the necessary qualifications, even though we have distributed more food with no strings attached than probably any other grassroots organization in this city. So, you know, to me, I always preach self-sufficiency. Everything about our organization is do it yourself. That's it. Like, we don't need to rely on these systems. We don't need to rely on anybody. And then, yes, there's the grants and the nonprofit industrial complex, but it's what you do with that money. A lot of people just bullshit and they pay, you know, their friends to continue and perpetuate the same cycles of, you know, dependency on these systems. And then I think, you know, the other thing I realized is something that I've done recently is, you know, I deleted all my personal social media, and I realized that how much of like what people talk about is just bullshit. And when you're on a farm growing your own food and you're breathing that air, and you realize what really is important. And so, you know, I wish more people were gonna figure this out before it's too late. That's my real fear, is that by the time we need enough community to really steward, like I'm talking about land, like land, that it's gonna be too late. We're gonna be too far behind the curve. And, you know, that's why I think videos like this are important. I think that's why the work that you're doing is so important. So I got a, you know, kind of like a snarky question here, but this concept of 40 acres and a mule, what are your thoughts on that?
They're conflicted, honestly, because I want my land. Like, you know, I want it. And I mean, that's that a little bit. But at the same time, I'm trying more and more to live a life of non-attachment. So, like, this land is not mine. This land is the Earth's, right? Like, we're guests here. So I think it, like I was saying with stewardship, it's like, this isn't my land, but this is my gift. Like, this is a gift from the universe that allows me to survive. And because I'm grateful for that, I need to be a land steward. That's my thought process. Like, I'm really grateful to be able to have my hands in the dirt. Like you said, like, being on the farm, like, it's different. Like, it's really different. Even like small urban farms, like, the energy is still different sometimes because, you know, that intention has been put into the land, that love has been put back into the land. But you are right, like, being away from the city and breathing fresh air or fresher air is an amazing feeling. And I do want people to have that more. And I know it's not for everybody, but sometimes I think it's not for everybody because you haven't experienced it and you haven't, like, done any unlearning or, like, unprogramming to realize, like, that this is such an amazing feeling. Like, you just feel so uncomfortable, like, because you're not in the city and you're not in that hustle and bustle that you're used to.
Do you think anybody could do this? Like, anybody could be a land protector, anybody could be a land steward?
Yeah, I do. And there's different degrees to it.
Don't.
Like, I don't think everybody is about to run off to, like, a farm and that's what they're gonna start doing. But it's as simple as, like, don't litter. Or, like, when you see people you're with litter, tell them to pick it up. Like, I don't let people litter when they're with me. Like, it's like, no, we're not walking anymore until you come back and pick this trash up off the ground, especially if we're in Orange. You can't be in my town and be littering with me. That's not cool at all. I don't like that. So it's things like that, like going to volunteer at farms or at gardens or starting to grow your own food at home, because it's not that hard. You can do it. You know, eating locally. There are just certain things that we can do slowly that make an impact. So Do I think everybody is going to go to the biggest extreme? No. But I like to try my best to be an optimist and think that people can do little things to increase their stewardship of the land.
I like that. Oftentimes, back when I was on my vegan grind, vegans can be real aggressive.
Very.
But I would tell people, like, it's not about, doing something cold turkey. It's about adding little by little. And I think that's, conceptually, that's what makes it easy to do land stewardship, especially because like I grow stuff and literally I just put it in a pot outside my porch and I just watch it, and it's so interesting. Even in our office on Clinton Ave, we grow tomatoes in our office, and it's interesting to see people come by and like, oh, I see your tomatoes are getting big, and having these conversations because it's so necessary. I share this story often now, is that we had a community member come in and they go, hey, where's your food at? And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, I only see fruits and vegetables in there. And I'm like, that's wild, right? That's a wild, now we have to like break that thought process apart to even begin to have them think about like, why is food important? So what do you think is the easiest part of what you do?
Honestly, for me, the easiest part is like hanging out with plants. I like plants a lot. I like going to see different gardens and farms. I just like being immersed in nature. So like that is truly the easiest part to me. And I have like a background in education, so I get very excited to share information with people. So those are probably the easiest things.
I want to go back to the Black and Indigenous solidarity, and something that I believe kind of affects, at least kind of systemically keeps us oppressed, is this need for a trauma Olympics. Like, slavery, all these other things, instead of us focusing on the commonalities. And especially, and this is something that I believe wholeheartedly in, and I said it in a talk this morning. Indigenous people are still around. Like, they're not gone. They're still around. And why are we not letting them be the front runners or the leaders of these conversations? It kind of like boggles my mind. So for me, like, what do you think Black and Indigenous solidarity looks like?
I mean, on a practical level, I think it's working with each other to organize and advocate. And in terms of land stewardship, I think it's learning from one another, because there's like infinite amounts of knowledge to learn from each other. But unfortunately, a lot of people do like to have trauma Olympics. So I think breaking away from that is like a huge portion, and like I think a lot of it is like just having to address and acknowledge like all this traumatic stuff has happened to us, like, and it's getting in the way of our organizing and our moving forward. Sorry, I'm just
no, we can leave it at that. That's fine.
I mean, there's so much more to say on that. Like, I think, but I really think it's a matter of like getting beyond differences and realizing that like we're not working together because the systems that be like don't want us to work together. Like, it's more beneficial for status quo, for us to keep picking at each other and like being annoyed. Like, oh well, we need reparations, but we were here first. Like, how about we just all work against our common enemy together?
So for someone, organizer or anybody who wants to get involved in this kind of work, what would you recommend as the first step?
Honestly, just jump in. I feel like a lot of people get anxiety around it. Like, you get so overwhelmed, like there's so many problems and it's so big, and like what can I do that's really beneficial? Just help out, like locally. See what gardens are around. Especially if you're in Newark, there are lots of farms around here. Like, start growing at home. Just do what you feel called to do.
And then because I want to wrap up soon, I usually ask people like, what is their hope for the work that they're doing? So like in a all utopian world, what is the hope that you have for land stewards and our people?
I'm gonna go beyond hope, because Again, shout out to Karen Rose. The flip side of hope is fear. So what I want to manifest and what I think is already being manifested is people reconnecting to the land and really seeing that this is us. Like, Mother Earth, like, that's not some bullshit. Like, this is our mother right here. Like, we need to protect this. And like I said before, like, the earth is going to be fine. She will get rid of us and start anew. Like, so if we want to stay here, like, we have to be present and, like, really do what we need to do to, like, make our time on earth last.
All right. Thanks for definitely pulling up. I appreciate you doing this solo with me.
Of course.
I was going to say something petty, but I won't. Do you have any final thoughts or any groups or organizations you want to shout out so, we could throw their Instagram or their contact information up? This is your time.
Final thoughts. I was a Jesus Miro fan, so I rainbow. Volunteer at a garden. And shout out to the Hub in Orange. Shout out to University of Orange. Shout out to myself, Orange Patches. Also, shout out to my business, Bloom Wilt. Herbalism, yoga. Who else? Shout out to y'all. Thank you for doing this. Shout out to Muncie Three Sisters, Greater North Conservancy. I'm gonna stop there because I'm gonna just start shouting out everybody. But yeah.
All right. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed nothing.
Say that again.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in today.